Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming you all to International Affairs. This is being broadcasted from the SATV's Gulshan studio. There is some interesting news that has been coming online as well as the multimedias regarding the peace talks which was held in Islamabad. There is huge debate on whether or not it was successful. I want to discuss all of these issues with our viewers, but before I do so, I'm going to introduce all my panel. In the studio, I have John Dalton, who is our international consultant, and I welcome him on, looking very fine today in ethnic wear as well, very timely. I welcome you onto this program. Alongside, I will be joined from Washington, D.C., Norman Floyd Barnes, who is our geopolitical correspondent all the way in the United States of America. Before I begin, I want to start with Norman Floyd Barnes. We have been seeing the peace talks being held in Islamabad. Of course, the Iranian side was represented by Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who was the Speaker of the House in Iran, and of course Abbas Araghchi, the Foreign Minister. Alongside, in the American side, we have J.D. Vance, the U.S. Vice President, was in Pakistan, and earlier today he had left. To what I understand, that this was a two-day discussion, almost 21 hours of back and forth negotiations, backdoor negotiations, also the details which have not been made clear. It has said that they could not come to an agreement, and Iran have mentioned that the U.S. demands were not just. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. This is an exciting time for geopolitics anywhere around the world. I want to know, how are you feeling from Washington, D.C., Norman?
Good morning. I'm feeling pretty good today. However, the scheduled talks that took over 21 hours failed. There was the two parties, J.D. Vance and the delegation from Iran, failed to come to terms on some type of common opinion. So J.D. Vance took the delegation and left and went home and stated that the U.S. gave them the best offer, and Iran stated that that was unacceptable. So that's where we're at right now. We're waiting to see exactly what happens now, and also Israel is scheduled to start their communications and talk about a ceasefire with Lebanon on Tuesday. So we'll wait to see exactly what that entails. But right now we're in a situation where we have a verbal ceasefire, but nothing else. That's it.
Right, and verbal words can change in the due course of time, as I pick out from your statement. It's important to understand how Pakistan had tried to take a step at mediation this time around. We've seen late into the weekend how the Iranian delegation had appeared in Islamabad, as well as the U.S. Led by J.D. Vance. It was important, almost 21 hours of direct talks, and of course the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shehbaz Sharif, was there to greet both of the sides as well, including his team, also the General Asim Munir. He was also there alongside Ishaq Dar, who is of course the Foreign Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in Pakistan. They tried their level best to understand what were the woes between the two sides. I want to ask the following question with John Dalton. It's important to understand what this ceasefire really meant. We didn't see J.D. Vance coming up in prior negotiations between the two sides. This time around, he did give some. He tried to, even visually, his last statement in Islamabad before leaving, he was seen very annoyed, to say the least. I want to ask you, what's your assessment of this talks over the weekend?
Well, I'm not surprised that they were not able to reach an agreement, because the very same issues that started this confrontation back in February are the same ones that are on the table now. Straits of Hormuz, the uranium, and the reparations. They want Iran was asking that the money which is being held by foreign banks, that it be released to help pay for their reconstruction. But normally negotiations are based upon a recognition that there's a need to come closer and closer together by exchanging ideas and working to resolve outstanding issues. It's usually not stated that they refuse to accept our offer, as if the United States was a superior party dealing with some smaller country, and that therefore they should have been willing to accede to the United States' wishes and just roll over and give the United States whatever they wanted in a negotiation. And that, of course, I think that most of the people in the world, and maybe Norman will have a different opinion, maybe the U.S. feels differently, most people feel as if the United States lost this battle, whether they lost credibility, whether they lost partnerships, whatever they lost, the United States is not seen as having secured a victory over Iran. And maybe just because people love an underdog, but the fact of the matter is the United States, with its bully boy tactics, has not succeeded in Iran as Trump hoped that they would. Bomb them into submission, end the civilization. So I think going into the negotiations, the United States had a false sense of superiority. And it's not surprising that it only ended in one day. Normally, if you're going to have negotiations, it'll go on, concessions are made, and so forth. So this was a rapid fire discussion about what the positions of the parties might be. None of them are really negotiators in the sense that they don't come from the State Department. I mean, J.D. Vance has nothing special in his background to say that he would be qualified to engage in these negotiations. And Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are just guys involved in real estate in New York.
In the social media, people have commented saying that one is the son-in-law, of course, another is the golfing buddy of the U.S. President.
That's their whole claim to fame. Now, Jared is a clever guy, but he still has no experience diplomatically, no experience in negotiation. So sending this crew to talk to high-level Iranians when they feel so empowered to simply impose their will on Iran may not have been the best strategy. So I'm not surprised that it ended somewhat quickly. I hope that there was some communication that opens the door for further negotiations. That'd be nice. And hats off to Pakistan. Hats off to Pakistan for having convened this session. They share a long border with Iran.
Yeah.
You know, Baluchistan right there is so, and I'm
almost
sure
a 1,000-kilometer border.
Yeah, then so for them it was in their best interest also to make sure, because as I said the other day, millions of refugees are crossing over the northern Iran border into southern Pakistan, in Baluchistan. And this is going to create a destabilizing effect in the region.
Of course, very important. And not only so, last week I picked out regarding the Saudi Arabia and Pakistan defense treaty that was signed earlier last year. And it was important because during the talks held in Islamabad, there has been a news that came out which states that Pakistan has deployed fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. It's the first visible military move under the mutual defense pact between the two countries as the talks were happening in Islamabad. Of course, the aircraft is a mixture of fighter jets, support jets, and it landed at King Abdulaziz Air Base in Saudi Arabia's eastern province just on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So this is on the backdrop of the talks being held. I want to also draw the line here that Iran and Saudi Arabia, of course, have their differences. Not only so, the two nations do have friendly ties way back into Pakistan. So I want to come to Norman regarding this very question. The neighborhood seems to be a bit ominous in reality because the ceasefire and the talks were an example that peace can prevail, peace should be given an opportunity even after 40 days of gruesome warfare. So right now, everyone is quick to assume that it is a failed negotiation, a failed meeting, a failed Islamabad talks. So I want to ask Norman, just the timing of how the Pakistani Air Force appeared in Saudi Arabia, do you think there would be more regarding this kind of issues coming up this week, Norman?
Thank you for that question. The whole concept of first thing, the Pakistani delegation putting together this meeting was fantastic. They have an ability to bring the two warring parties together, to talk is a great start. So the process still goes on. As long as there are communications, there's hope. On the other side, by having the Pakistani jets go over to Saudi Arabia, we're now focusing on regional. This conflict has brought out the point to the governments that they have to take care of their own house and they have to take care of their region. So that communications, the coordination, and the exercises that will come up regarding this for their own self-interest is something positive. It shows that the United States is a powerful nation, but our region, we have to take control of the region. We have to control what goes on here and how things work because the United States can't save us. We have to save ourselves.
Of course.
That's a good observation.
That's a very good observation as well. And this would be the first time around ever since the 1979 Islamic Revolution of Iran that the US is sitting down to talk with Iran's revolutionary government. It's important. Some people made drastic comparisons. The four-member team that Iran sent, they all have doctorate degrees to make a comparison, whether they are qualified or not, or if that argument still is valid. The location was at the Serena Hotel, and Islamabad became completely quiet. I just wanted to know from John Dalton, you see, this is important because we don't see US and Iran talk on a daily basis, but definitely the same sort they do with Israel. And not only so, I've seen a video of Benjamin Netanyahu trying to address his nation in which he held a map of Middle East and he marked some of the countries, Yemen as well as Iran, as well as Iraq as well, and also Lebanon. The nation that has been heavily bombed in recent times over the last weekend by using chemicals that have been banned under the Geneva Convention, including white phosphorus.
Yeah.
So that has been a very eye-opening issue for the entire world, even as the ceasefire between Iran and the US take place. I want to ask you, Benjamin Netanyahu, his positioning, whether he is the barking dog that wants to see this fight prolong over the year. I want to know how you felt about it.
Well, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu survived this last election by putting together a coalition of very right-wing parties that would protect him against going to court. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu has been credibly accused of bribery, corruption, business dealings that are incorrect, as has his wife Sarah. And he was due to go into court this week. And the fact that he did not go to court, he was rescued by the negotiations that took place in Pakistan. It is absolutely important that that he maintain some sort of action always to keep himself from having to go and face justice. The justice ministries in Israel are pretty independent, and they have in the past put people into jail who have, you know, high-level politicians. So he's being very cautious about his future as well as an individual. Forget about his, you know, ranting. But he only survives because he has this right-wing coalition that is attacked Gaza, that's attacked Lebanon, and that is, you know, unstable. But when you come back, let's talk a little bit about how Iran also financed Hezbollah, financed Hamas, financed the Houthis. That Iran has not been a great neighbor for Israel in the region, and so the animosity is understood.
Of course, and the two sides are having not full-blown warfare; they have silent cold wars, as per your statement regarding this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very important discussion today. Do stay tuned as we head for a short commercial break. And welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Panto.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them.
testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Welcoming all our viewers back on International Affairs. Today in the studio, I'm joined with John Dalton, our senior international consultant, as well as Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C. And of course, I must mention Mohammad Musab, our Pakistan correspondent, is joining us on this broadcast from Islamabad. He was, of course, on the ground, on the field from day one to observe and to understand the Islamabad peace talks. I want to ask him how he's feeling. As of this early morning, J.D. Vance has left Islamabad, and of course, what of this peace talk is very important. I want to know the ground realities from Mohammad Musab in Islamabad. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling sleepy, to be honest. It's been more than 48 hours that we haven't slept. It's been a marathon run. For most foreign journalists who were here from different countries, there were major news organizations here, the biggest of the biggest radio stations, television channels, digital outlets, and at the same time, newspaper organizations were here. There was a media facilitation center set up at the convention center in Islamabad, where news was coming in from all across the globe. People like you, anchors who do shows and newsrooms were being very patient as all eyes were in Islamabad. We were hoping for something more positive to come out as an outcome of these talks. But I still have hope. I still think that it's not gone down the drain as of yet. I think there's still hope. J.D. Vance's, the US Vice President's last words were not that the ceasefire is broken. His last words were that we've given our best and final offer. Pakistan, I believe, I'm not sure, and I haven't really had any confirmation on this, but I believe Pakistan will remain actively involved in some behind the scene negotiations that will still go on. As we know, the 2 week ceasefire brokered by Pakistan was started on Tuesday, and there's still time. It's still not 1 week since that was done. But having said that, it was a good attempt from both parties. I believe it was positive a mindset that they brought, a very clear-headedness. Both sides knew what they wanted. The US had a 15-point agenda. The Iranians had a 10-point agenda. But we also must keep in mind that this is a 47-year-old dispute that cannot be resolved in a 21-hour sitting. I understand the frustration on both sides, also high hopes from all over the world, as the global economy might take a hit if they decide to go back to war. But I think it was a very positive development that both sides accepted a third party facilitation, a third party mediation. They accepted to sit down face to face after having been at war twice in the last 1 year. Uh, all is not gone down the drain. There's still positives from the fact that no matter what happens, that after having been at war for more than a month, uh, they finally do realize that negotiations are the way forward, and it's not war that can solve these disputes that they have amongst themselves. It's at the end of the day, it's going to be negotiations. They'll have to sit down on a table. But at the same time, I must commend the Pakistani government's side, not the fact that I'm a Pakistani or I'm sitting in Pakistan, but Pakistan's global relevance was at display. The fact that Pakistan has the ability, whatever economic conditions that Pakistan is under at this point in time, it still has the ability to bring two opponents to a table. And the fact that both sides trusted Pakistan because they've sat down at Qatar last year, they've sat down in
Right.
Oman this year. So yes, there are quite a few positives from this as well.
Can I question?
Right. Please, please. You
Tell
can
me,
ask.
Dan, I couldn't tell from the news reports, but was anybody from the Republican Guard in the contingent from Iran? It looked like they were the normal administrative.
No.
Yeah.
To answer that question, there was more than an 80-member delegation that came in from Iran.
Oh, okay.
The fact that the Chief of Defense Forces, Sayyid Asim Munir, he was wearing a military uniform, and that's very significant when he received the Iranian delegation in Islamabad. So I can confirm that there were at least two military generals from the IRGC, and that is why he had that military uniform on. If you see the visuals, that when he was receiving the US delegation, he was in civilian clothes, and that's because there was no military personnel on board when the US Vice President arrived in Islamabad, Noor Khan Air Base in Islamabad.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that there were somebody from the IRGC there for the simple reason that they basically will be the final decision on any negotiation anyway.
Yeah, of
Do you
course.
agree?
If you look at the Iranian, yeah, if you look at the Iranian delegation, it was big. It was really big.
Of course, a very important question thrown by John Dalton towards Musab. Understand that the optics and the symbolism plays a huge role here in the negotiations. I have an example as well that I've seen how the Iranian delegation would shake hands and then give a hug towards the Pakistani members that were there to receive them. But of course, that wasn't the case when it was the US team coming in regarding this issue. Very important updates provided by Mohammed Musab. I want to get a comment from Norman Floyd Barnes as well, who has been observing the situation from Washington, D.C. As Don breaks. Some of these comments are very important. U.S. President Donald Trump came to the White House lawn to address some of the reporters. The major takeaway from his statements were Donald Trump said, no matter what happens in these negotiations, the U.S. has already won. These are the words of Donald Trump. And not only so, a reporter had asked him whether China were to be supplying or upgrading some munitions towards the Iranians in the coming days. And Donald Trump's only blunt reply was that will be not a good decision, and that will be a big problem for the Chinese. I want to know how you see Donald Trump's handling of the matter. Norman.
Yes, from my observation, the president stated his intention as basically we have already won. So basically, what I'm doing, I'm sending my messenger, J.D. Vance, here to meet with you and to map out, to lay out the terms of your surrender. Basically, we're talking about these are the terms that we want you to accept for us to stop our military engagement with you. So if you agree to these terms, we will be able to go back to normal, and you will be able to live another day. However, the Iranians' response is not something that the United States understand. Is that you have not defeated us. We still have uh, a say to what's going on, and we still want to develop our country, including the nuclear part of that. And the Strait of Hormuz is now a situation moving forward. It's a gateway, it's a toll booth, and we want to collect toll from that. So these things are not negotiable for us. And United States, in your success, you have to accept these terms. So that's where we lie right now. We have two parties who believe they have control over the situation. And right now, this ceasefire is basically not really much to it. It's just basically we're pausing. And the good thing about it is that we are communicating through a third party, which is Pakistan, which is a great thing, as long as that communication there's not bombs going. So let's hopefully people go back and refresh, reconvene, and come back with a counter on exactly how we should coexist. So it's not going to be like a Donald Trump thing that we have won and you have to submit to the conquerors and we're going to colonize you and these are our terms. You're dealing with Persia. Persia's been around 6,000 years, and that type of comments and understanding historically do not work with them. So I think we need to do a little more education, find out about our history, how we deal with things.
Of course, and that is very important. One cannot ignore the past, and the history always will have two sides to the story, and that is why it's important. Before I come back into the studio, I want to have a very small question towards Mohammed Musab there in Islamabad, Pakistan. There is a story that is coming out regarding Benjamin Netanyahu, who is using lethal, of course, unwarranted attacks on southern Lebanon, using of white phosphorus bombs, which are, of course, violating the Geneva Accords. Not only so, we see a move away of diplomatic relationships between Israel and the European nation of Spain. Of course, residents in one part of Spain had blew up the portrait and blew up almost a figurative doll of Netanyahu, saying during the Easter celebrations on Resurrection Sunday. The act formed part of the local customs for burning figures considered symbols of evil during the Holy Week. So, of course, this is a move away from the support usually we are accustomed to see that Israel receives. Mohammed Musab, I want to get a take from you. How do you see this as more people move away because of this genocidal nation trying to impose genocide on other nations in the Middle East? Musab.
So, if you try to look into details of what did not go right during these Islamabad talks, you would understand that Lebanon was probably part and parcel of this. So basically, Iran believes that Lebanon was part of the 2 week ceasefire that was brokered by Pakistan. The United States and Israel believe that it was not. The fact that Pakistan brokered ceasefire was probably really hard, but the fact that Pakistan tried to maintain that because Iran was constantly calling out Israel's attacks on Lebanon and saying that they're not ready to come to Pakistan, they're not ready to sit down with the United States delegation in Islamabad because the Lebanon part of the deal is not being held by Israel. So what went wrong? A lot of people are saying it was because of the nuclear thing, and that's an answer that was given by the United States Vice President J.D. Vance. But to my understanding and to people that I've talked to so far, Hormuz, Lebanon, nuclear enrichment were all roadblocks that did not let both sides move forward. At the same time, the fact that the Iranians want unfreezing of their assets abroad, the Iranian missile program, and the fact that Iran wanted guarantees from the international community that they will not be attacked again. What we need to understand here is also the fact that the Trump administration has a midterm election coming up. The Israeli administration has a midterm election coming up, and the Iranians have lost their supreme leader, and then there's a new supreme leader. And if you read the report by Reuters, the state, the condition in which Mustafa Khamenei is living currently, everybody who came to the table had a lot of baggage. The Israelis and the Lebanese have decided to sort things out between themselves. These talks will happen in the United States this coming week, where they've decided that they do not want any mediation. The United States will be a part of that negotiation. It's unclear whether they'll be siding with anybody or whether they'll be facilitators or mediators. But direct negotiations are going to take place. At this point in time, when we're talking, Lebanon is being heavily bombed
Yes.
by the Israelis. They're using probably this window. I'm trying to be very cautious when I say these things. But yes, Israel has had issues with Hamas. They've had issues with Houthis. They've had issues with Hezbollah. And they're probably using this window to eliminate one of the so-called proxies of the Iranian regime. Let's see what happens. But at this point in time, Lebanon is definitely under everybody's radar, and everybody is hoping that things will cool down, because war is not good. Whenever it happens all over the world, it's not good. It's best that negotiations have fruitful outcomes, have positive outcomes. But to answer your question, yes, they're being heavily bombed. And also, answering the second part of your question regarding Spain, I think the NATO allies, by saying no to the United States, have also, yes, said no to the Israeli regime. They do not want to be dragged into any war in the Middle East. They do not want to take sides in the Middle East anymore. Let's see, keep an eye on China. The UAE is going to be visiting China. The Crown Prince is going to be visiting China in the coming days, and the UAE has put their weight behind Israel at this point in time, and they want definitive action against Iran, because they believe that they've been betrayed by their neighbors, and they believe that they have a right to stand with the Israelis. So interesting days ahead for news organizations, but it seems it's very bleak for the Middle Eastern countries in the coming days and weeks.
Of course, very important updates provided by Mohammed Musab. Lovely commentary regarding the situation in Spain. Very briefly, I want to ask John Dalton in the studio. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez began his 4-day tour on Saturday of China. So he is seeing the Chinese fourth time in the last 4 years. That is important. And how Spain is trying to project its foreign policy regarding these wars, and of course no support whatsoever regarding the war. They don't want to be dragged in to something they don't see through on it. Of course, bilateral trade between Spain and China reached $50 billion in 2024. Any comments regarding the situation, the geopolitical situation, and how Spain sees to ignore all of this?
Well, I mean, I think Spain has the moral high ground for sure. I mean, they've taken on Israel and saying that Europe should no longer be associated with Israel in any kind of defense pact or any kind of trade pact. And I think it's also true to look at Norway and Sweden that have similar positions, refusing to allow Netanyahu even entry into their country. So I think some of the Europeans are taking a very, very strong position against Israel and against their leadership as a manifestation of their opposition to the war and also to the actions of Israel as well. Before you go anywhere, I want to make one brief comment. I believe that this Israel-Lebanon rapprochement, this discussion, is a smokescreen created by Israel to take Lebanon off the table in their ability and negotiations with Iran. I think it's a total fake deal. They'll go there, they'll make some sort of accommodation, but they don't want to have Iran have any say in what they do with respect to Lebanon.
Of course, and that is very important to understand ceasefires and how There's not just one or two nations involved, it's almost a host of nations that have now been involved, even without having a direct retaliation being planned. Very important statement from John Dalton. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to take another short break. After the break, we discuss more on how we understand this unfolding geopolitical world. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsulam Pantha.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
Opening an open war conflict with them.
testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
with President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Welcoming all our viewers back on International Affairs. Before the break, I guess we have disconnected with our foreign connections. I must thank Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, D.C., as well as Mohammed Musab for their valuable contributions onto the program. And back to the discussion in the studio with John Dalton. We were talking about the nexus of operations between so many nations that are now seeing themselves a day-on involvement is going on. Not only so, the whole argument, there is a debate, we can have a debate regarding this, that the U.S. comes to say that the whole reason for war was not to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. On the contrary, we hear, even if it is unofficial, that Israel, on the other hand, do have nuclear weapons of the sort. So the question to you would be, if one country can have that in that region, would other countries require to have that as well? If not, why not just disarm Israel of their nuclear weapons and call it a deal?
Well, yeah, that'd be great, but of course, they are not a party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement.
The NPT.
They do not admit that they have a nuclear weapon.
It's a secret program that they have.
And well guarded too. So that Dimona, which is the center for their research activities on nuclear fusion. They never say that they have a bomb and they're working on. They say, well, it's a study of nuclear fusion in Dimona. But I think there's no question that they have it. I mean, they have the capabilities intellectually to make it. They're very, very talented scientists and very clever people. And I have no doubt that they have a stockpile. The numbers vary. People sometimes say something more than 10 and less than 50. That's a wide range of nuclear possibilities, huh? Iran is, and the reason why Israel is so set against Iran having a nuclear weapon is because Iran has stated over and over again their interest in wiping Israel off the map. And so words have consequences sometimes. And so Iran saying, we will do everything we can to eliminate Israel. If they had a nuclear weapon, imagine how that argument would be elevated to the point where Iran might very well attack Israel with a nuclear weapon and just suffer the consequences. They would be like throw themselves on the sword and say, we've done our best to eliminate eliminate Israel from the map. But I don't think anybody is ready even to take up at the United Nations or at the IAEA or any other place the fact that Israel has a unstated nuclear weapon. And you can rest assured they will never sign on to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Of course, very important statements regarding the NPT, regarding the nuclear use, regarding warfare amongst the neighboring countries. All of these nations are demarcated by a line created by humans. So once again, this is territorial warfare, to say the least. There is a news that I want to ask you just before finishing the program for today. Netanyahu's remarks against President Erdogan result of discomfort caused by truths. That is what Turkey is saying about them. In the televised address by Netanyahu, he did mention how Erdogan does not see eye to eye with the Kurdish people in his nation. So, of course, the remarks is good enough to embroil someone's emotion for allowing them to embark on a war they're not involved in. Even Turkey was subjected to Iranian drone fire. That, of course, member of NATO, they had taken those drones down. But the joisting between Netanyahu and Erdogan does remind us all that they might come into a retaliation. I want to get your last comments regarding this.
Well, Netanyahu was always trying to stir up the interest in other countries for suggesting that he's trying to foment revolution. Remember now, he's the guy that convinced Donald Trump that if you go into Iran, the people will rise up and throw over the regime, and then we'll have a democratic Iran. Yeah, right. He's doing the same sort of thing in Turkey with he's saying the Kurds, which have been after World War II or after World War I, basically, were deprived of their own state. That they were not given Kurdistan as a possibility, and they were just simply, they exist in Syria, and they exist in Iraq, and they exist in Turkey. But he's just trying to fire up some Kurdish nationalists to try to do something against Turkey. Take the pressure off so that Erdogan's attention is focused someplace else.
Right.
Now, you said something very interesting. Let me comment upon it.
Please.
You know, we just saw the wonderful Artemis spacecraft, and we saw numerous visual images of the Earth. And if you look at the Earth, there are no borderlines visible from space. There are no lines that separate China from any place else, or from Iran from Pakistan. It's a globe. We're all in this together. And yet these borders, which were created by man, have created so much controversy, so much difficulty. It's a good thing to look at that and say, you know, this was never the intent of whoever the God was that created this earth, to put lines to divide us. So,
no, that's a very good way of seeing it. At the end of the day, geopolitics is man-made to a certain degree. I must thank you, Sir John Dalton. Your important insights on a Sunday is very important for the building of international affairs here in the studio. Thanking all our guests as well who were here earlier. And as you were saying, there was a successful coming back to home for the Artemis II that have successfully come back last weekend. And not only so, today is April 12th. It's important as it's the International Day of Human Spaceflight, celebrated annually to honor Yuri Gagarin's 1961 orbit of the Earth. With that being said, I'm Shamsuddin Panto signing out on International Affairs.